Back on the Rob Dibble Show with Ben Darnell on your afternoon drive. One of our favorite people on the line now. This is Mike Petraglia, CLNS Media. Covers the NFL, covers Cincinnati Bengals. And his Cincinnati Bengals have been the topic for almost every talk show, coast to coast. Can they keep their stars together? And so the first person I thought of, Mike, was you. And you might have some...
Thanks. I wish I got a cut of that.
I agree, man. You should.
Well, and then, I got a hold of you, and then the first headline I read this morning was that the salary cap jumped, and it's gone way up. And the first question that came to mind, can that help the Bengals re-sign all of their stars?
So here's the deal. Duke Tobin made it clear to us, the director of player personnel for the Bengals, on Tuesday when he gave his presentation to the media at the podium and then later off to the side with the beat reporters. I was in on that as well. The structure is in place. The framework is in place, in his words, to get it done with Jamar, T. Higgins, and Trey Hendrickson, all of them, and keep them in Bengal uniforms. They're very confident that the framework is in place to get it done. We're headed in that direction. So that got me thinking, okay, well, the framework's in place. That means they know that the salary cap's going to come out at about 279. So it came out, I guess, today, 279.1 or 2. And so they knew that. They knew they'd have about $61 million in cap space. They knew they'd be able to work with that and have more left over to sign guys like Mike Gesicki, also a Bengal last year, and maybe go out and get themselves a defensive tackle, which they need. Go out and get an interior offensive lineman, which they need, and take care of business. The issue is how much cash do they have available, and will they be willing to part with all of the cash in the kitty, in their banks, to assure that T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and Trey Hendrickson are ready to go for the regular season? It depends on whom you talk to, whom you speak to, as to whether or not they will be willing, when push comes to shove, to get that done. I believe they know they have to get it done with Jamar. I think they feel like we pretty much have to get it done with T because he's almost as young as Jamar, 26 versus 25. So you want two star receivers for Joe Burrow, your franchise quarterback, going forward, with a chance to win the Super Bowl in the next couple of years. To me, it's a pretty obvious decision to make. You get the deal done between the two sides, you go back, you crunch out the numbers. It all comes down to whether or not the Bengals have the cash. I think they do. From what I've been told they do. Will they part with the cash up front? And that's, to me, I think those are the debates that are going on internally with the Bengals and why it's taking this long.
Dibs kind of sparked this idea in my head a couple of days ago, and I'm just wondering in a general sense, as this is done a lot in the NFL, I think Jamar Chase is the no-brainer, and Jamar Chase probably knows that he's the no-brainer. But I could say to Jamar as a general manager, like, hey, man, it'd be easier for you and a better contract duration to have T. But we can't get T for the price that both you guys want. Jamar, if you took a little shave, we could have both of you guys, but I can't pay you both.
Well,
is that a part of what's going on here? And does that happen a lot with other teams and other things?
Well, Ben, take it a step further. Joe Burrow's already said he would be willing to do what you're suggesting. And so the way they're borrowing the cash is not from Jamar's deal, because Jamar is Jamar, and that personality demands to be paid what he wants to be paid. But Burrow has said, I worked out my deal last year with you guys to make sure that we would have the cash to do this so that you could pay me, Jamar, and T, and have the cash to do exactly what is presenting itself now in these negotiations. The frustrating part to Joe Burrow is, I told you what I'd be willing to do. Why haven't you wrapped it up yet?
Okay.
And that's the question nobody knows the answer to, because Katie and Troy Blackburn and Mike Brown will never disclose those details. I don't even know, and I'm being honest here, I don't even know if Duke Tobin knows the full reality of the cash situation. So I think he's leaving this high-level negotiation up to three people, Katie, Troy, and Mike Brown.
I mean, Mike Brown has been in charge of that team since I was a Red.
Yep.
I mean, he is.
How many Super Bowls?
But yeah, I mean, but listen, he's a shrewd. No, exactly. They won 0, but he's still a shrewd business person. He's making a lot of money as an owner. These franchisers are worth so much money. You bring up a great point. You know, they've said this, but what can Joe Burrow do? Does he have to go public to try to embarrass them and guilt them into that? So he's already done that. All right. So, I mean, what can he do to try to get them to surround? Because I thought this year, and correct me if I'm wrong, losing Joe Mixon was a huge piece. I thought that hurt them. How do you replace a Joe Mixon? And if you do, and and Boyd left too. So getting rid of those two guys, what if you lose T. Higgins? Now what is Joe Burrow thinking? What am I going to do without like 3 of my best parts from 2 years ago?
So I think they did a pretty good job replacing Joe Mixon, and I think Joe Burrow knew that Chase Brown was a way for the Bengals to get younger and faster and more explosive in the run game, in the pass game from the running back position. I don't think he's upset about that, Dibbs. I think he knew that Mixon's style no longer fit with the pass offense that Dan Picture, their offensive coordinator, wanted to move forward with. I think he's good with that. Tyler Boyd, again, someone who had given great service to the organization, but it was time to move on. Those two pieces, I think, that Burrow would have no problem at all with. It's going public and then being told, we're going to use that money that you said we could use on these two players, and then not getting the deal done. I will tell you that if this goes sideways, I don't think Joe Burrow will be as amenable or gracious when asked publicly about it. I mean, he'll start out by saying, my job is the quarterback, that's all I do. That will be his way of saying, I have no power, they don't listen to me anymore, and I think that'll be about the extent of it. It won't be the Carson Palmer deal where it went nuclear. Now, Carson Palmer never got his deal, Joe Burrow did. I do think there is some nervousness inside the organization that if they don't get this done, the franchise will really go sideways. And they're trying to negotiate a stadium lease deal on Paycor Stadium to extend it, and that is not going well. And I don't think, as somebody, and Dibbs, you know this, Mike Brown got away with that deal once. He's not going to get it again. And there are a lot of hurt feelings inside Hamilton County and a lot of frustrated people who think that the Bengals really run the town and take advantage of that. One thing I wanted to say while I'm rambling on here, always remember that the Bengals are a sports franchise run by lawyers in Mike Brown and Katie Blackburn, his daughter. And that's the way the Bengals do business. They don't do business as a sports franchise looking to win multiple championships. They do business as, if we can win, great, but the bottom line is the bottom line. The way we do business is the way we do business, and that's not going to change.
In some aspects, I respect it. I kind of like what's going on in Cleveland right now with Myles Garrett, with as many guys requesting trades and getting moved to better teams that really don't help the franchise in return a lot of the time. Sometimes it does, but a lot of the time it doesn't. Like Debo getting let go by the San Francisco 49ers. Like, go ahead, go find a trade and bring it back to us. Tariq Hill, that might be a situation in Miami here coming up. But Cleveland has told Myles, no, you got next year and the year after that on your contract, and we're not opening to trade. What do you make of that situation? How do you think it's going to play out, and how unique is what is going on in Cleveland here in 2025?
Well, I mean, the full context of that Cleveland deal is no team's going to want to trade for Myles Garrett and assume the negative years, and I don't want to get too deep into the weeds, but there are negative years in the final 4 or 5 years of that contract where teams would have to assume negative debt on the salary cap. It would absolutely kill the teams that picked that up, and and we're talking about tens and tens of millions of dollars salary cap impact that the teams, whatever team that would trade for him, would not be able to get out of. That's why most teams would not be interested in pursuing Myles Garrett. And I think the team saying that publicly to him is, we still think we can be a championship team or build toward that with you on our roster. And I think that's trying to show Myles Garrett that Cleveland is still vested in him, and I think that's what that was about.
Talking to Mike Petraglia from CLNS Media. Explain this to me. The Patriots have $128 million in cap space. Now, how much are they going to spend that on the team? I'm sure the people here in New England would like to know.
Well, I've talked to many New England people. I just got back from Indianapolis. I was at the draft combine for 3 days. And I just got back. And talking with the New England people, it's all about how Mike Vrabel wants to acquire the right players to play the game the way he wants it played, and the toughness. And sometimes you don't spend money just because you have the money to spend.
Okay.
And I think he's more concerned with building the culture the right way and getting weapons around Drake May. But if T. Higgins isn't on the free agent market, which I don't think he's going to be one way or another, he will not be a free agent. There isn't a lot of the wide receiver market this year, both in the draft and maybe in free agency, is not as great as it's been in years past. So where are you going to spend that money? You're going to spend it probably on offensive and defensive linemen. And you're not going to spend all of that cap space again because you think you need to spend it. No, if you can roll over some of it, you roll over some of it. And I think that's the smart way, by the way, to approach it. The Patriots just have to rebuild both sides in the trenches. That's non-negotiable. They have Mike Owenu, and then maybe David Andrews returns, maybe he doesn't. We really don't know yet. And then they need 3 other starting offensive linemen. That's a lot to ask to put in front of a second-year quarterback, a great quarterback, but a second-year quarterback who's still learning his way in the NFL. So Vrabel's got to negotiate that. You got to decide what to do with Godshaw. I think he could be a future Bengal, as a matter of fact. He's the kind of guy that the Bengals need in the middle of that defensive line. I think he could be had for, I don't know, a 3rd or 4th round pick and a player. But, if you're the Patriots, you have to build smartly. You certainly have to draft smartly. And I think they feel like they have the head coach in place to help them do that.
What was the buzz on these old quarterbacks trying to find a home when you were there at the Combine? We got Stafford running around, a lot of people interested in him, and I heard today that Aaron Rodgers and the Giants may have had a conversation about something. I don't know what's true about that, but those 2 guys in particular, Aaron Rodgers, Matt Stafford, give me some rumor stuff.
Well, Tennessee and Cleveland would certainly be a place where Stafford could land. I think the Browns feel like if they got a quarterback like Stafford for a couple of years, they could really accelerate their rebuild.
I agree.
Because
yeah.
when the Bengals started their rebuild pre-Carson Palmer, they went with John Kitna. And it's kind of a situation where you want stability at that position, where you're not necessarily throwing a young quarterback into the fire and having him try to, pull your butt out of the fire all the time. Now, Drake May, for multiple reasons, he responded to it well last year, and he is well on his way. But that situation doesn't always pan out. So Tennessee is in desperate need of a quarterback. And, the quarterback that they want at 2nd overall may not be there, or first overall. Now I can't remember if they're drafting first or second.
They're first, but they've been talking about Travis Hunter for the last couple of years.
Yeah, so I don't know in which direction Tennessee wants to go. Maybe they trade down for multiple picks,
right,
and get a quarterback and another need position in the first round.
Yep.
There are a lot of different ways to go when you have the first overall pick. But they could also use one of these veteran quarterbacks, Kirk Cousins or Matthew Stafford, plug them in. Then there are the teams that are mediocre, that if you slot a quarterback in, they suddenly become a lot more dynamic. And, I don't know if the Jets still feel that way, that they are. I don't think they are. There are other teams, I think, Pittsburgh's always a candidate for somebody like that, because we don't know what's going to happen with Russ Wilson. And, you keep moving on down the line, but and the Raiders, of course. I think that's a team that would always have to be in consideration. I think that's one of the rumors I heard with Matthew Stafford, I believe it was, and meeting. Who was it? Somebody was meeting secretly with Tom Brady. It was either Stafford or the other quarterback that we've been mentioning in this conversation.
Aaron
but
Rodgers.
The Raiders were always a team that I think could use a bridge quarterback, to stabilize the operation.
Trags, you are the best. Appreciate your time. Everybody can go to Jungle Roar Podcast or Code Reds Podcast, get some more of Mike, but covering the Midwest and the NFL and MLB. You are one of the best to have on this show. Always great information. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Mike.
And Dibs, by the way, I think the Reds are looking legit down in there. I was there for a week.
But dude, Ellie De La Cruz, dude, he's looking like an MVP.
Trags is falling into it with everybody else.
One week
Everybody's
into
excited.
spring training, but yes, Dibs, he is.
One weekend, we're already talking championship.
Everybody's a winner right now.
I love it, man. Thank you, Trags.
All right, guys.
All right, man. Be well.
Take care.
Mike Petraglia, everybody. We'll come back, do Dibbles and Bits next for you.